Welcome to This Birding Life, a podcast for birdwatchers everywhere. I'm your host, Bill Thompson III. This Birding Life comes to you from the Big Bird House at Birdwatchers Digest, and we want to congratulate this fine magazine on 40 years of publishing great content for birders. Get a taste of what BWD is cooking at birdwatchersdigest.com. This Birding Life is sponsored by three wonderful and forward-thinking organizations. Carl Zeiss Sports Optics makes the amazing Victory SF binocular and the new and equally amazing Harpia spotting scope. Join the Zeiss community of birders at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. Quirk Expeditions, the leader in polar adventures, has partnered with Noah Stricker for a brand new birding expedition sailing from South Georgia to Cape Verde. Noah will act as field guide and onboard lecturer as passengers explore some of the world's most remote islands in search of rare and endemic birds. Learn more at quirkexpeditions.com. Finally, the American Birding Expo is your opportunity to experience the world of birding in one place, September 29 to October 1 in 2017, and next September 21 to 23, 2018 in Oaks, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. More than 100 exhibitors from all over the world will be there. Learn more at birdingexpo.com. Now on to our episode. This is episode 72, a conversation with Jeffrey A. Gordon of the American Birding Association. It used to be, if you heard the name Jeff Gordon, everyone assumed you were talking about the NASCAR driver. Like that guy in the movie Office Space whose name was Michael Bolton, it can be tough sharing a name with a vastly famous person. But this Jeff Gordon, the birding one, our Jeff Gordon, is justifiably famous in his own right. He's best known as the president of the American Birding Association, North America's leading membership organization for avid birders. But he's also a well-known writer, photographer, and naturalist. He's a frequent speaker at various birding and nature festivals, and he's led birding tours all over the globe, especially in North and Central America. I've known Jeff for a lot of years, and he's one of the most interesting, thoughtful, and funny people on earth. Here's my conversation with Jeff Gordon. Jeff, welcome to the Skype version of This Birding Life.
Well, thanks, Bill.
Hey, so you and I have known each other for a long time. I was trying to think as we were getting ready for this interview, where did we first meet? Was it down in Texas?
Wow.
That's a stumper. Right off the bat, I stumped you.
I think that's right. I think it's the Green Kingfisher year.
Yeah. That's right.
Palooza year.
That's right. Exactly. And it seems like only yesterday, doesn't it?
Back in the days of Love Me Do.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, obviously we're off to a great start here, so we're tripping over tongues. But Jeff, I wanted to start off by going back to your early days as a birder. I know you grew up birding in Delaware, and you've got a long history there. That's now where the ABA is headquartered, which seems to be kind of a full circle thing. What were you like as a young birder? What was it like for you in those first days of birding, and like what was the spark that got you started?
Well, I was really interested in wildlife and critters from, teeny tiny, literally like age 3 or 4. My mom was a volunteer guide for the Delaware Nature Society, and she always had me out, looking at stuff. And I love snakes and sharks and dinosaurs and butterflies, but not so much birds. My view of birds was that they were all kind of small and flitty and confusing. And I don't know, I think at that point I wanted stuff that I could grab and, look at or put in a jar.
Right.
And then of course was impressed by huge things like great white sharks. And I thought some birds like peregrine falcons or, I remember seeing that after school special on the Last of the Curlews, the animated cartoon. Yeah. And I thought birds like that were really cool. But, even like a peregrine falcon, I just never thought I would ever see one. It just seemed like, first of all, their populations were at a complete low ebb then. This is, mid 70s. And so I just, was into a lot of nature, but but really not so much birds. And then um, I I was active with this Delaware Nature Society teen group, like a teen naturalist kind of group, and we went to the Everglades over Christmas of 1976,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, did a canoe trip, and I had started to get interested in photography actually, and down in South Florida, the big wading birds, all the herons and egrets and spoonbills, and as they are in Florida, they're tame and they're approachable. And I got really interested in photographing them, and even started to kind of use the field guide and figure stuff out. And but the real spark was I went home that winter and really started to look at the birds at our feeders. And we'd always had feeders, and I even thought I knew, stuff about what was going on there. But I, I, I had my mind blown by this really small, kind of inconsequential thing. I knew goldfinches turned dull in the winter. They weren't bright yellow, and I thought that you could tell the males from the females because the females were streaky, and they'd be on the thistle feeders with the dull unstreaked males and the streaky little females. So I'm sitting there looking out the window and looking at my Chan Robbins Golden Guide, and I realized that those streaky little things with the goldfinches were a completely other kind of bird, which was a pine siskin, and I had no idea that a pine siskin existed. Like I didn't, and they say big doors swing on small hinges. It's so goofy, but that like I really did have that sort of conversion experience that we as birders often call a spark bird.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden you just see a horizon that's way out beyond anything that you perceived was there before. And boy, shortly after that I saw like my first red-bellied woodpeckers, and like how I missed that in Florida I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's the amazing thing about it. I mean, I remember back at that age, people going for some of my mom's friends, they'd go for walks with her and they'd say, I really feel like I should get my eyes checked because, you see all this stuff that I don't see. And I guess to me, that's still the most exciting thing about it is it's just this whole world, and a world of like interconnections that the muggles, as we, birders might call them, the people who lack that wizarding power of birding, just miss out on.
Yeah, and we're lucky that we started as youngsters because we don't have what I know my mom kind of had when she discovered birding in the early 70s here in Marietta. And it is regret that, oh man, I wish I'd been birding back when I was in Mexico or Jamaica or where, places my mom got to travel to before the light went on. So we don't have that. I think that's pretty lucky in one set. Now, speaking of being a young birder, the ABA has always had a significant presence in promoting birding to young people and also in encouraging involvement. I know you guys annually run a series of super popular, well-attended camps. Can you tell our listeners something about ABA's youth birding camps and youth birding outreach?
Sure. Yeah. And, I just want to say that, it is such an incredible gift to have gotten interested in birds, like you and I both did at an age when you can remember things very quickly. And,
Right.
it gives you such a leg up. And we do see that so many of the leaders of our community, of the birding community, the conservation community, the ornithological community, they did get hooked at that kind of, preteen,
Mm-hmm.
early teen kind of age. So it's really a key thing. And, with the ABA, I think one of the most amazing things about birding is, unlike so many pursuits, athletic or artistic or intellectual, they have this narrow window of like if you're a female gymnast, what by the time you're 19, you're over the hill or
Right.
something like that, or if you're going to study like particle physics or something, you probably need to get at least into your 30s before you know enough about it to really have an idea. Birding, I mean, 14-year-olds can and do make serious contributions to the birding community, and so can and do 90-year-olds.
Hmm.
And I think that is just an amazing thing about birding. So um, I think the ABA has always had interest and supported birders of all age, including young birders, but I think it took them until, oh, I don't know. Somewhere around 20 years ago, kind of mid 90s, to really explicitly start running young birder programs. And I don't know. I think, Bill, you and I have both been in this long enough that, like, I certainly remember for a long time when I was a teen birder, um, you know, I I would hear people say things like, oh, it's so nice to see a young person around, but it's just terrible the way no kids are getting into this. We're all old, and they sort of stand around and talk about it the way farmers talk about the weather,
Right.
which is like, it's this terrible thing that we can't really do anything about. And I think one of the greatest things of the last couple of decades is that we as a community have realized that you can do something about it. Now, we've caught some really lucky breaks with the internet and social media that I think our community has plugged into really naturally,
Hmm.
and that's really helped bring younger people in. But I think, and this extends right on up to making birding more inclusive and diverse. Like you cannot wait for the people to find you.
Hmm.
You have to go out where they are. And so with groups like Victor Emmanuel, starting some of these young birder camps, and of course, National Audubon has a young birder camp at Hog Island. Um, ABA has got at this point 3 young birder camps that we do. Um, it's really started to be this kind of scene, and these kids get into these bird camp groups, and they go and do different ones over the course of their high school years. And it's no exaggeration to say that they're forming relationships, personal relationships and professional relationships, and just the whole kind of acculturation
Yeah.
to birding that are really going to last a lifetime. So
Yeah.
it's just so inspiring.
Well, let me ask you, and you guys do such a good job at it too. Let me ask you this: do you think that as communities like birding, niche communities have gotten more connected, do you think that some of the social stigma that used to be on birding has gone away? It doesn't seem like these kids these days are coming up going, "Wow, I didn't tell anyone else I was a birder." I heard because I remember meeting friends my age in the late 70s who were also into birds and nature, and it was kind of like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one, or I thought I was one of a handful. Do you think that the connectivity we have has helped with that social stigma?
I think it has helped. I think a lot of things have gotten a lot better. But the first thing I want to say in response to your question is that even today, even with all these cool artists and musicians and things sort of saying that they're interested in birds, the kids, it's still unbelievable for them to get together and be with each other for like a solid week of geeking out.
Right.
And one of the really interesting things, because you're dealing with kids, like 13 to 18, whatever. And so, there's all that just kind of basic socialization and learning life skills kind of thing that's happening, but it's
Hmm.
all happening in this birding community context. So it's for these kids, I think it's almost like this idealized kind of community. It's a community where the rules have shifted a little bit, and the stuff that they're interested in is suddenly, super cool, super
Yeah.
prioritized, super value. So that's awesome. But yeah, I really do think that being a geek, being a nerd is just a lot cooler than it used to be,
Thank
about a
God.
lot of things. Yeah, so that's good. And one of the things we have gotten better about is valuing the recruiters and the social connectors. And I kind of feel like you and I both. That's the thing that we're most interested in, and that we've had the biggest impact with. I mean, in the birding community, the traditional ways of being like an expert or a person in demand are you either are extremely skillful at identifying birds, or you really know a lot about birds. You've seen a bunch of them, you know a lot
Hmm.
about their habits or where to find them, something like that. Like those are kind of the ways you achieve eminence or status or whatever. And I think the thing that we have radically undervalued as a community is the people who bring the community together, and who organize the festivals, the field trips, run the bird clubs. We've gotten better at saying, what, this is really, really valuable.
Hmm.
And it's, I think it's kind of changed the texture of our
Hmm.
community. You can wait for that lightning to strike. A certain number of people are going to have their little pine siskin moment, or in your case, the snowy owl
Right.
moment, or whatever. And not to say, I mean, you and I both had adults around us that were mentoring in various ways, but ask any church, any business, any organization. They are into recruitment, and some of them are very, very sophisticated about it, and I feel like we are just dipping our toes in that.
Hmm.
That you know a really valuable way to spend your time and energy is by getting more birders into the tent. A really valuable way to do it is to go out and find a rare bird, and other people can see and enjoy it. That's awesome. But we have a lot of people that are super, super valuable members of our community that frankly aren't that skillful at identifying birds, or maybe they haven't traveled much and seen a bunch of different things. But my goodness, the local club would shut down if they weren't there.
Right. Exactly.
So,
So speaking of communicators and connectors and clubs, your time as president of the ABA has really seen a remarkable shift online. You immediately started and your staff started developing online communities, and right off the bat, great website, blog, incredible presence on Facebook. And I want you to kind of give us a feel for what the philosophy is behind that. And maybe it's kind of what you've already been talking about. But then also, I'd like you to share a little bit about your experience at the Facebook Summit, where
okay.
ABA was handpicked as a community to highlight, which was totally awesome.
That was terrific. So going back to what the mid aughts into about 2010, the ABA will have its 50th anniversary in 2019. So we're coming up on that milestone. If you go back to that kind of 2005, that's about the period when you and I met, and that was the first wave of bird bloggers, and actually the
Mm-hmm.
first wave of podcasting, and a bunch of stuff where birders were, I mean, we'd had email for about 10 years. I think it's about mid
Mm-hmm.
90s when you first got a lot of the listservs and everything coming out. Um, and suddenly all these people are sharing their experience of birding in this really immediate way, immediate temporally, but also visually and emotionally. And I mean, you and I were big parts of that. Birdwatchers Digest, I think, was always punching way above its weight in terms of its utilization of the web and such. And um, there were so many people, especially in that kind of bird blogger community, that they were super into this, and they had no real idea what the ABA was. And realizing that was just like, wow, it's like there's this whole group out here and they're not being reached at all. So
Right.
when I did get the job at the ABA, it seemed like that was an imperative to reach that group of people, but also, that kind of 20th century model of the organization and the organization's leadership, and I don't mean just the ABAs, I mean like the organization,
Right.
being kind of insulated behind these walls of, gatekeepers and access and everything else. Um, People were just losing patience with that. And I think particularly in birding, because like birding is, I don't want to say it's a small community, because there's certainly, thousands and thousands and even millions of us, but it it is a community that's very, very much based on reputation and trust. And I may not know somebody, but I've probably got a buddy that knows her or
Right.
something like that. And um, you know, to me, it seemed absolutely imperative for um, getting the ABA's message out there and, frankly, restoring trust in the
Mhm.
organization, which I think had, there were a lot of question marks about what was happening because there was this, feeling of a lack of transparency, a lack of responsiveness. So it, I didn't see any other route. Plus the fact, online interaction, it doesn't cost a lot.
Yeah.
You can make stone soup, as it were, and
Exactly.
and I think that's kind of the house specialty for a lot of us. You know,
I love soup du jour, but every time I get it, it tastes different.
Switch it up. Quartz and granite. Yeah. Oh God.
Well, you've done such a great job at that. I know you were an early adopter of technology. Lots and lots of stuff that I've seen you with over the years. I've been like, Jeff, what's that? And before we started recording here, I was like, you were telling me about some app that you use to keep in touch, and I was like, oh, okay, Jeff, what's that? It was like the latest episode of me asking you technological questions. So,
Uh,
I think your enjoyment of technology and your engagement with it has probably was one of the things that put you in an ideal position to take over as ABA president and guide the organization through this really evolution, I would say, to becoming just you're right up there at the very top of the communication that happens on a regular basis to birders. So the obviously you got the attention of one of the most successful web entrepreneurs in the world, Mark Zuckerberg, and his, I mean, so
uh-huh.
explain what happened there and how, I mean, that must have made you feel just incredible to get
Yeah.
that nod and the invitation to come be part of that.
Yeah. So, you're talking about the Facebook Community Summit that happened in mid-June in Chicago, and it was the first of its kind. I hope there'll be more of them. It was a big deal. It was, the only time Facebook has ever changed its mission statement, and Zuckerberg and almost all the leadership of Facebook, a bunch of us got messages inviting us as group admins for these different Facebook groups, and the ABA has a bunch of them, um, to apply for this kind of thing. It was very, very fragmentary details about what it was. So we put two of our groups, the ABA Rare Bird Alert and What's This Bird, in. And they wound up particularly selecting the Rare Bird Alert, but also highlighted What's This Bird. And uh, it just turned out to be, as I say, a much bigger deal than we thought. And I actually got to speak as part of this keynote program. Got to hear Mark Zuckerberg up there on stage, specifically talking about building the community of bird watchers and how
Wow.
communities like that, they may seem inconsequential or frivolous, but they're really important. And it was just clear from all the stuff that went on. It was like a couple day summit with all these different groups. I mean, and some very, very serious, people supporting victims of terrible diseases, or groups dedicated to arguing, and groups dedicated to techno disco music, and just all different things. And I think the thing that was the best about it for us is um, to feel how well received that message of birding and that community of birding was. Like the people there, from Zuckerberg to everybody, like, you just heard people talking about birding and bird watchers, and they
Yeah.
got it. They got it with minimal explanation. And you know what a great feeling that is. Like,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
kind of so used to going into a room and, kind of being greeted with blank stares, and at a certain point, even being a little bit sort of, oh, well, that's very nice,
Right.
and to get in this,
Pat, pat, pat.
right. Yeah. You go enjoy looking at your birds. And, to be in this room of really, really, excited, passionate people, and have
Yeah.
them go, man, that's awesome. It maybe was a bit of a salve for some of those, middle school wounds.
The swirlies,
Right? Yeah. I flash back to my head in the toilet between.
the wedgies and the swirlies. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Every now and then it's nice to get a little bit of payback on those things.
Yeah.
Well, now that you and Mark Zuckerberg are
BFF.
Facebook messaging each other, I want to ask about another sort of big pop culture moment that you and I remember having some very interesting conversations with you about this. The movie The Big Year, which to this day, it's still the touch point for almost everybody I meet who has oh, you're a bird watcher. Hey, I saw that. What was that movie I saw? I saw a movie about that. What do you think everybody in the birding community thought, oh, wow, a Hollywood movie that doesn't just denigrate birding. It's not the little old lady in tennis shoes or the professor in the pith helmet with a butterfly net, We were all hoping that it would have a big impact. And I think we kind of were waiting for the impact immediately afterwards. I mean, I don't know about you at ABA, but our phones here at Birdwatchers Digest didn't ring off the hook with people going, hey, I got to get your magazine. I want to be part of this crazy world. And yet the long-term effect seems to have been it's a conversation starter for a lot of people who find out that you're a birder who, they have zero connection, maybe even zero connection to the natural world. But, what do you think the net effect of that was?
Well, I share basically all your reactions. We all geared up for this thing. I mean, there were some organizations that wound up, I think, investing quite a bit of money. Not the least of which was Paramount, or whatever studio. I can't even remember now. Maybe was it Fox? Maybe it was Fox. I think it was Fox.
Oh, it was Fox that brought it out.
Yeah. So, a lot of money was spent in anticipation of this wave of, interest and everything. And of course, the movie was a terrible disappointment at the box office. And I think a lot of the birding community, the take on it was, it's just not that accurate, whatever. But boy, it's been fascinating to see how that's changed as the thing left the theaters and went on to cable and airplanes and DVD, and now, streaming. That that is what people talk to you about in gas stations and restaurants. And if subject to birding is going to come up, that's the touch point. And, I think one thing in all the discussion, and of course we all, went nuts talking about it when it came out. I think one thing that almost all of us missed was what a novelty a live action family friendly movie is. Like that basically movies for kids are animated or intolerable for adults. Movies for adults, I don't know about your family, but like most families don't want to, go to things that are too explicit or too violent. And, The Big Year, anybody can watch it. It's
That's
a
right.
little bit like birding itself in that way. And I haven't seen certainly anything else in the, pop culture line that has been as effective a recruitment tool. I mean, I
Hmm.
have had numerous people tell me that seeing that movie was their impetus to get into birding or to get
Oh, that's
quote
good.
unquote serious about it. So, you know, I mean, like everybody, I guess every religion, everything else, we all want that. We're all looking for that perfect recruitment film, that like the movie that we can show somebody that they'll walk out of the
Right.
theater and go, oh, I want to join X. I want to
Uh,
do Y.
I want to get a Dalmatian because I just saw 101 Dalmatians.
Right, right,
Right.
exactly. Although, boy, I remember Border Collies in the wake of Babe.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that crested and left.
Well, so it was the movie was a decent recruitment tool.
I think
It could
so.
have been I still say this. It could have been such a better movie
Yeah.
given the cast. I mean, I interviewed the director, David Frankel, I think was his name, for an episode of this podcast years ago, right after the movie came out. And with that cast, I was really expecting a laugh riot kind of
Mhm.
thing. And there were some funny moments, but it was not like I just thought it was like vanilla ice cream with too many sprinkles in it. It just kind of turned gray. And he said, "Yeah, it's tough getting a picture through when you got so many big stars in it because everybody, you can't do that with my client. You can't, I mean, I
Right.
think there's probably a lot of studio authority that was exerted there, but
Yeah.
it ended up being not quite the movie it could have been. And yet, I'm more thankful that it didn't denigrate birding and make it go for the cheap laughs, right?
Yeah, no, and I think it's honestly the worst thing about it it's a comedy that's not that funny,
Yeah,
um, which is a serious flaw.
yeah,
But it is a charming movie in a lot of ways, and I think it actually it it presents birding in a relatively favorable light. It really does. I mean, the way the characters move around, and
right,
it's not very accurate, but some things. Like, I mean, here's an example. The scene with when they're out looking for flammulated owls, flammers. I've never heard a birder
right,
use that term. And of course, it's the middle of the day. Owen Wilson is talking about, everybody knows the guy at the golf course, the country club, whatever, that cheats. You don't want to be that guy,
right.
and that I I thought that scene was a really good,
Yeah,
very very accurate, and it is unfortunate because Frankel, I guess his most famous movie is The Devil Wears Prada,
right.
and I that movie is apparently used as an example of a film that kind of opened a niche world or market to a larger audience. It's viewed as having been incredibly successful at generating interest in that fashion
Yeah,
world. So yeah, I mean it's hard not to feel that the big year movie there was some missed opportunity there, but I think that's a movie whose stock has done nothing but increase.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's a good thing we bought stock in it way back when.
right.
Tell us about the Good Birders series of books. You were in the first one,
Mhm.
and then the second one you were sort of the lead content gatherer, I guess, vision person behind it. Describe the
Well,
books for
yeah.
people. That
Yeah, I was Lisa White's train bearer, I think is what
Shout out to Lisa.
happened there. But yeah, the idea, I guess, of both volumes was to collect essays by people in the birding community, and many of whom had book projects with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. The and for the second volume, Still Don't Wear White. The and of course you have essays in both volumes too. Um, I think the main thing in putting together the second one, I wanted to consciously try to kind of get across the practice of birding, that people have their practice, um, and I'm thinking maybe a little less of meditation and a little more of, say, like running or
Hmm.
something like that, or playing music. these activities have different places in different people's lives, and I wanted the authors to really emphasize what they love about birding, what they get out of it, and to focus on that. Try to offer people a few little tips or ways in if the reader wanted to try some of that type of practice.
Yeah.
The first volume, it covered a lot of the same ground, but I think it was maybe a little bit more of like, here's how to go birding in a storm. It was kind of like tips.
Yeah.
And
this one was more personal.
And I think sometimes being the obsessive types that we are, a lot of us can lapse into don't do this, don't do that, watch out for this kind of thing. And so I think I was hoping to maybe short circuit that a little bit, and to really get people to focus on, this is why I love, and we had a chapter, Ioana Saraton wrote about, dead birds in a museum,
right.
That's not necessarily something that a lot of readers are going to take up, but I just always found one of the most pleasurable and educational things in life is spending time with somebody who's really into something and having them talk about why they're into it. So, which of course, kind of like what this podcast
kind of like what we're doing right now. And,
so this is, I guess, the exception that proves the rule.
Oh gosh, not at all. All right, so I'm going to take you back again. We're mining your history. Tell us about the Ivorybill search and what happened there, because that was all the news that anybody listened to for a long, long time, and everybody had such hope tied up in it and such passion. What was your experience? What did you take away from that? And are they still out there? What did you think they were out there then? I mean, I got to ask all those questions, Jeff.
Okay, great. So it was like about 2005, I'm thinking. 2000.
The Louisiana one was like 98, and then this was like 2005, I think. Yeah.
That was a pivotal period for me in a lot of ways, and I think for a lot of us in birding. I still remember where I was and what I was doing when I first heard the news.
Me too.
Did not hear it. I got it with the rest of the public, via NPR. Wound up actually volunteering, as did you, to go down and be one of the searchers. You did that,
No,
right?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I was on a book deadline, and just there was no way. I really wanted to. I looked for them hard in Whipple, Ohio.
Okay.
Good. And I saw they were coming to my suet feeder. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was you that was calling about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a chance to pull a volunteer hitch down there in the White River and be amongst the searchers. In fact, I was in the first group of public searchers, and I think it was certainly December. I think it was 2005. The news broke in April, and then this was the following December. And it was interesting. The crew I was in had Bird Chick, Sharon Steitler, Chris Benish, and Jesse Fagan from Field Guides. A bunch of great folks, captained by Phoebe Snetzinger's son, Tom. And so I spent my 2 weeks out there. I guess a couple things. Number one, I went in 95% believing and 5% skeptical. I was very persuaded by, the announcement and the quality of the folks that were involved in a lot of it. And, in retrospect, some of the issues with the evidence or lack thereof that, other folks keyed right in on just blew right by me. I just was like, there's no way they would get this wrong, kind of thing. So I was very, very, positive about it, but still, you always, you're hoping, you're hoping that you'll be the one to get the documentation, what have you. And mostly you're just hoping that somebody does. getting down there. I mean, I was really, really impressed with the people that were involved and just the level of commitment to it and everything else. But I will also say that after about a week, it hit me like this could all fall apart. You yell fire in a crowded theater, and all these other processes start to take over, and they can actually obscure and even become more significant with whether there actually is a fire. It became clear to me that there were problems, and that there was this element of sort of groupthink or wishful thinking.
Right.
That I definitely came away going, wow, I really hope this turns around. And of course, it didn't turn around. The best evidence that was collected very early on. And at this point, I'm just talking about some of the better documented sightings that Cornell and its partners got early on.
Right.
I think those are the best evidence. I am completely persuaded by David Sibley and Chris Elphick and Mike Patton's analysis of the Leno video. I think it definitively shows a pileated woodpecker. I think best case scenario. Well, no, there's no good case scenario.
No.
I'm sorry to say. I mean, I feel like the ivory-billed woodpecker has a sad distinction of going extinct twice.
Wow.
Obviously, I don't know the ultimate answers to it, but clearly, a lot of what happened in the wake of those sightings in Arkansas was more wishful thinking than a miraculous survival.
Right. But you did get a ghillie suit out of it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, boy.
You were the first person I ever saw in one of those in live, and that was impressive.
Well, I am really impressed given that you live in Southeast Ohio.
Well, but see, they're so good around here that you never see the people wearing them.
Okay. It's only the amateur ghillie suit wearers that you can detect.
That's right. You jumped out of your vehicle and it was you wearing it. And I was like, oh, wow, look. There's a tree trunk up against Jeff's car. Anyway, so if you were going to take off birding right now for a nice weekend of birding somewhere, what are the must-take things in your kit? Cell phone.
Yeah, no, definitely cell phone. I do really enjoy taking pictures of birds. So if I feel like I'm going to have a chance at all, I will throw in my DSLR and telephoto lens. But and maybe this was I lived for a while in Colorado when I first got the job at ABA, and maybe this is partly influence of that, but I do find myself more interested in the kind of go out all day and hike around somewhere and see what I see kind of approach. And I'm a lot less likely to do what a lot of birders out here in the Mid-Atlantic do, especially in little tiny Delaware. I mean, they'll get up and drive down to one end of the state at Cape Henlopen and bird their way north and virtually cover the state in a day. And I won't say I'm not interested in that anymore. With the right group of friends, it can still be a total blast. But I don't have the passion for that I once did.
Yeah, so a lot of car time, which you'd rather be on the trail.
Exactly. And part of that is kind of attentional, but part of it is just like physical. Gosh, at the end of the day, you want to step out of the car all kinked up from, having driven and having gotten almost no exercise. That feels less and less like a break now.
Exactly.
But I will say, and you may be kind of in this boat too. It's an interesting boat to be in, but I would say that a huge percentage of the birding I do at this point is leading groups of people.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm as likely to get out on my bike and, be just cycling but also always, listening and watching for the birds around me.
Right.
And that adds immeasurably to the cycling experience, but it's not as bird oriented as maybe it once was. But this is one of the really great things about having a job that's closely aligned with your passion.
Yeah.
You do get to do some of it and during work hours.
Right. Exactly. And those are billable hours. Hey, man.
Although, there is, and I don't mean this. I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but like, that the experience of working at a restaurant is significantly different than the experience of going to a restaurant.
Right.
And this is one thing that if you're in tour leading or all these kinds of things, you really are. One hopes you're a pro, and you're doing it to take care of other people. I am these young birders. They all want to be tour leaders, and this is one of the things I'm always trying to emphasize to them. Make sure if you want to be a tour leader that you really, really enjoy showing other people birds. That really gives you a lot of energy, really feeds you. If that's the case, then it can be awesome. But we've definitely all seen people out there. Usually, you don't see them out there for too long. That really they just want to go birding, and
they want somebody else to help underwrite that.
That is not what tour leading is about.
No, it's funny too. As I've gotten to my mid-50s now, I realize that I really do like showing other people birds. I've never been a professional tour guide as you were years ago with Vent, right? Victor Manuel Nature Tours, but like when we do our reader rendezvous and you guys do your ABA rallies and birding trips, I really enjoy that because it's easy to do. I don't know. It's very satisfying for me, and almost definitely more satisfying than chasing off after some rare bird and hitting it or missing it. Even though I still like that, there's so much more deep satisfaction from sharing the sightings with other people.
Well, and I think that's, one thing that's always come through about you. And I think that's, true for me. I think it's true for a lot of the very best tour leaders. Yeah, I think it's not unlike being a teacher or a professor, that sometimes you have a professor and they're really eminent or the research they do is really exciting. Those can be great classes sometimes, but boy, everybody loves the classes with the professors that are just born to teach. Yeah. And maybe nobody's ever heard of them. Maybe their administrators are trying to fire them because they don't publish enough.
Right.
But they're just incredible teachers, and that is something I aspire to, and I know you do too. It's just plus there's that pesky kind of hospitality gene.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember Liz, my wife Liz, at the Camp Colorado this year. We were talking about this careers in birding kind of thing, and that's a short talk, by the way. No, but this is actually a subject you spend a lot of time on with the kids.
Right.
But and she was saying, if you want to be a tour leader, learn how to make really good picnics.
Right.
And it's really true, because when you're taking people out birding, finding the birds is the most important thing after safety. Man, there's so much of the little atmospherics and the hospitality and just taking care of people that
being able to
so
take people's temperature kind of thing. And that's all.
Yep.
Well, Jeff, the American Birding Association, aba.org.
Yep.
And it couldn't have a better leader than you. You've done a great job bringing that organization forward, and everybody's so well engaged. You got a terrific team there. You guys are doing great stuff. You're getting deeper into bird conservation as well. We could talk for another hour easily, but I think we'll have to leave it where we are now. I want to do this again. We'll have to come back again and do part 2, and maybe we can hear some of your stories from some of the trips you led, because you've cracked me up a million times with those things over the years.
Wow. Well, good. And this has really been fun. It's always great to have a chance to catch up, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, buddy. Listen, and let's get some birding time in sometime, okay? Let's do that.
Could happen.
Yeah. All right, Jeff. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks again, Bill. Bye-bye.
The American Birding Association inspires all people to enjoy and protect wild birds. For more information on the ABA and on Jeff Gordon, visit aba.org. Thanks and happy 40th anniversary to Birdwatchers Digest, the magazine for birders who love to read and readers who love to bird. Learn more at birdwatchersdigest.com and sample our content at birdwatchersdigest-digital.com. Carl Zeiss Sports Optics is a This Birding Life sponsor. They also make top flight optics for birding. Join the Zeiss community of birders at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. Quark Expeditions is the leader in polar adventures, offering unparalleled access to the most remote parts of the globe. Learn more at quarkexpeditions.com. And finally, the American Birding Expo, which is the world of birding in one place. Join us this fall and next fall outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and experience the birding lifestyle for yourself. Learn more at birdingexpo.com. Well, that's it for this episode, folks. Subscribe to the RSS feed if you haven't already so you won't miss a single monthly episode. Send us your comments to editor@birdwatchersdigest.com. And if you're joining us from Google Play, YouTube, or any of the other channels where we've recently established a toehold for This Birding Life, welcome. We're happy you're here. Until next time, thanks for listening, and I'll see you out there with the birds. Laters!